You're listening to another great podcast in the MyMac Podcasting Network.
News, views, security stories, technology, and all sorts of other related chit-chat that catches our attention. Welcome to the Essential Apple Podcast.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Essential Apple Podcast 141. And this week is going, of course, to be the Jony Ive Exit Strategy Edition. So, that's not the only thing in the news. The iOS 13 and Catalina Public Betas were launched, and I, of course, ignored all good sense and dove headlong into them. Consequences be damned, which is already bitten me on the arse. More about that later. What's it like on the white-hot bleeding edge? Well, I'll tell you in a bit. Apple have bought a self-driving car company that was on the edge of collapse. What does that say? And, well, of course, the biggest story of the week, Jony Ive is leaving. There are some other stories we'll cover as well, but to help me go over these stories, I'm joined by Nick. Hello, Nick.
Hi, Simon. You early adopter, you?
Oh, yeah, I know. Madness as ever, but, you know, I love it. If you count the number of beta programs I'm running, it's dangerously high. And I'm also joined by Donny. Hello, Donny.
Hello. So this recording has a chance of not happening, even though you're recording it with all the beta stuff.
No, actually, I'm not running the beta right now because just before the show, or about 10 minutes before, I thought, well, I better get set up. So I opened Audio Hijack, and it said, Audio Hijack is not, qualified against this OS. You can proceed anyway. So I said, okay, I'll proceed anyway. And it launched, and it was all fine, except all the output channels had big yellow triangles on them. So then I checked, and Loopback wasn't running. So I thought, oh, I'll open Loopback then manually. I opened Loopback, and Loopback said, Loopback 1 does not, in any way, shape, or form, work with the Catalina beta. And to have any chance of it working at all, you must have Loopback 2. So, emergency fallback position, reboot the Mac from my clone drive and get everything up and running from that. But the only drawback from that is obviously that's a USB drive, and I've asked Nick to do a backup recording just in case the slowness of the drive causes any glitches in my recording. So there we go. That's what I mean. Be brave, go beta, get bit on the arse. There we are. But other than that, actually, I have to say, I've been running the beta for about, well, when did they launch it? Wednesday? Tuesday? I can't remember. It's been very good, actually. The Finder is quite sluggish, but it is the first public beta, so I can forgive that. Other than that, it's really quite good. I've not had any terrible issues with it, so...
Jolly good. I think I'll stick to the official launch day.
And of course
or beyond that, in all honesty, because up until recently I was running High Sierra for quite a long time.
Yeah, there is a lot to be said for that. Don't get me wrong. And of course I also dove straight into the iOS 13 beta, and that also is actually performing incredibly well. I have to say, visually a few changes, mostly for the better, I think. And that seems to be performing very well. I've got an annoying glitch on Mail on iOS that it refuses to remove the last unread mail marker. It's constantly saying there's one email unread, even when there are no emails unread. I've sent that one back to Apple on the feedback. But other than that, I've not come across anything that's not working properly. So that's pretty good. And I've not noticed any obvious slowdown or excess battery drain or anything else. So for a first public beta, that's pretty good. Yeah, so I'm impressed with that, especially as the developers were saying the first developer beta was buggy as buggy can be. But there we are. So, where shall we start? Apple have bought a self-driving startup which was called Drive AI, apparently just days before it went bankrupt. I've got a link here to The Verge. I'm sure it's elsewhere. Apparently, Drive AI was a fairly unique startup on the on the self-driving autonomous car front, in that they were focusing, I believe, on creating kits to allow non-smart cars, as it were, to become smart. Did you read this? I mean, you're into electric vehicles and the like, Nick.
Yeah. I'm just having a quick look through it now. So it appears that they're also running a ride-hailing service.
Yes, they were
of autonomous vehicles in Texas.
Mm.
So yeah,
it's
I'm
strange.
I'm surprised Apple have bought them because they seem to have suddenly lost interest in. I mean, not in AI as a whole, but in vehicle technology.
I don't know if they have. I mean, they kind of scaled back Project Titan and reassigned a load of people, but I don't necessarily think that means they've lost interest. It could just be that they're refocusing on a certain area.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
When you start a project and maybe you're kind of examining all the avenues, you might want to have 300-400 people working on it, and when you sort of go, right, well, that's not going to work, and that's not going to work, and that's too expensive, and that's ugly, and a dodgy kludge, you might go, right, well, all those divisions, we'll close all those because they're all dead ends, and we'll focus on the one which we think is going to lead somewhere.
So it says they've got a fleet of modified Nissan NV200s. I don't know whether that's NV200s or ENV200s.
No, I don't know.
Because the NV200 is a petrol vehicle, well, petrol or diesel.
Yeah.
Whereas the ENV200 is the electric version.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's struck me as because apparently this company were about to close and lay everybody off. And as it says here on The Verge, recently they were valued at 200 million. Apparently, this company.
I wonder how much Apple got them for.
Well, probably whatever their debt was, I would have thought.
Yes, more than likely.
We'll pay off your creditors and.
Yeah, it says further down in the article, it's not clear just how much of Drive AI will survive at Apple, or whether the startup's mass layoffs will proceed as scheduled.
Yes, it says Apple has purchased the company's assets, including the autonomous cars. But Axios and the San Francisco Chronicle have suggested that Apple chose to hire engineers away directly. Other workers may be coming along for the ride. Yeah, that I can imagine. I would think that Apple probably acquired them, on the cheap. I'll be honest, which is good business policy, really. They're going to go under. Well, why don't we just snap them up? And
I was going to say, instead of just hiring the employees from a company that closed, if they buy the company, they get all the tech and everything that's in the company already, instead of having the workers, quote unquote, start from scratch.
Yeah, exactly. And whether they, retain all of the sort of ancillary staff, I would have thought they'd be looking at it mainly as a way to acquire the engineers and the, and possibly IP, whatever IP Drive AI have.
Maybe so. We'll just have to wait and see, won't we?
Well, we will. Or we'll probably hear no more about it.
We'll never know.
Oh, yes. That's more likely.
I mean, I guess to some extent, whether or not you consider it a good or bad thing, from a business point of view, it's probably a very cheap way to acquire a lot of talent and IP. And also, if those people were about to be put out of work, I should think a lot of them will be quite grateful. And grateful employees make, happy employees.
Yes.
Yes. What does it tell us at this moment? Not a lot, other than Apple are obviously still interested in self-driving to some extent.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's got so confusing, hasn't it, over the last couple of years, 2 or 3 years, where Apple have seemed to have been hiring all sorts of AI experts and to do with driving, but we've not seen anything so far that appears that they've actually done anything. Well, certainly nothing they can release to the public anyway.
No, I mean, they built those shuttle buses, didn't they, to run around their own campus, I think, or to...
Yeah.
I mean, we've said it before, and lots of people, there's a big difference between getting something like a shuttle bus to follow pretty much a designated route from A to B and back again, and actually getting what you and I would consider to be a self-driving car.
I was watching a YouTube video of someone with an Audi e-tron.
Okay.
And testing out its it doesn't call itself autopilot. It's just like assisted driving.
Yes, assisted driving mode.
Yes, and I must admit it was interesting to watch because he was taking it down A roads in the UK, and it was coping probably 70% at the time, and then it would suddenly switch itself off, and when it got a little bit confused or the road got a bit wide, so there's definitely a way to go yet. I'm just not convinced that it's as far away as some people believe.
No, a lot of people keep saying decades. It will be decades.
I don't think so. I think when you think of the progress that we've made in 5 years, it's been quite rapid, really. And I think it's only a fairly short time, maybe another 5, maybe less. Who knows?
I think the question is what will be real first, a real self-driving car or a real foldable phone?
Yeah, good point.
Which would you rather have? I know which I'd rather have, and it comes with 4 wheels and hopefully doesn't
fold. I want my
fold.
car to talk to me and drive by itself and have the turbo boost like Knight Rider.
Oh yes, that would be cool.
No, I would definitely be one for, just get in the car, take me to work, thank you very much, and then drive back home afterwards.
Well, the other question is when will the people like you and me be able to afford that car?
Indeed. But then again, of course, there's lots of people are speculating that that if such technology, becomes widely available, that it might herald the end of a large-scale vehicle ownership, because if you can effectively just summon a vehicle, because it is true, isn't it? Most people's vehicles are only in use a fraction of the time. What they do the rest of the time, they sit around in parking lots or on your drive or whatever. If you could have a car come to you, pick you up, take you to work, and then drive off and do lots of other things all during the day, you would need much less cars. The only biggest problem for that is you're going to need all these cars at peak periods when everybody wants a car.
I think that will take much longer. So self-driving cars, I think, will be fairly quick in year terms. I don't think it's going to be that far away, but I think getting people to accept non-car ownership is going to take a little bit longer. I think changing technology is easy. Changing people's hearts and minds is much harder.
Yes, is much harder. Although,
so we'll see.
We will see. But that said, Nick, I've also seen quite a lot of kind of opinion poll type and market survey type material, which is saying because the cost of driving is becoming, so high that more and more young people are basically no longer aspiring.
Well, that's possible. I mean, if you give people the opportunity of saying, well, I tell you what, you can either have a car you can summon and it will take you to places, and it might cost you, I don't know, £1,000 a year, or you can buy your own car and it's going to cost you at least £2,500 a year.
Yeah.
You can see how some younger people would say, well, hold on a minute, that's a lot of money.
And of course, particularly in, metropolitan areas, a lot of young people just say the cost of driving is prohibitively, is completely prohibitive. And of course, if you live in, I don't know, London or Manchester or, American cities that have, trams and subways and buses, then you can probably get anywhere and everywhere you like without ever having to use a car. If you're like me, and probably you, Nick, where I live, if I didn't have a car, life would be miserable.
Yeah, I'd manage without a car locally, but I wouldn't be able to get to work. Well, I would, but it would take me hours and hours.
Yeah, and probably cost you far more than travelling by car, Yeah.
I don't know if you have these over in your neck of the woods, but we have these scooters that are being more and more motorized scooters that you kind of hop on, activate them through an app. I've never used one, but you activate it through an app, and then it charges you through the app how long you use it. You get to your location, drop the scooter, go do what you need to do, and find another scooter when you're ready and go back to where you need to go. and start it
It's a
all
good
over
idea.
again.
Yeah, it's a nice idea. Unfortunately, in the UK, it tends to rain an awful lot of the time.
There's also the fact that actually in this country, those kind of scooters are actually illegal.
Oh, for the ones that are quite fast, yes.
Well,
I think it's 16 miles an hour they're limited to or something like that.
I don't know, but basically motorised scooters, full stop, are illegal for road use.
These look like kick scooters, like you stand on them and
That's
like a child.
They are technically illegal in the UK.
Oh.
Yeah, I think it's bicycles that are limited to 16 miles an hour. I mean, you can go faster than 16 miles an hour, but the motor can't make you go faster than 16 miles an hour. You have to do that yourself.
The next story, Apple has hired an ARM lead CPU architect amid rumours of ARM-based Macs as early as 2020. This is on Mac Rumours. The fact that I just thought this was a bit of a stretch. I'll be honest. Apple have hired the lead CPU architect from ARM. He worked on a lot of top chips. Was it the A76 Cortex? I think was mentioned. That is in and of itself not particularly surprising, to be honest. Because didn't Apple just lose one of their top chip guys? Didn't he just retire?
Maybe. Sounds right.
2 or 3 weeks ago, I think. One of their top guys left, retired, whatever. But to say that because they've hired him, kind of implies that ARM Macs are on the horizon. I don't get that at all. I mean, they've just lost one of their top designers. Surely they would just want to make sure that their team is still up to strength. And Apple use ARM stuff all over the shop. So just because they've hired a leading system chip architect, I just don't see that points to ARM Macs at all. Other than if you want to,
I think it's very easy to read far too much into the people that Apple hires.
Oh, yes.
This doesn't sound much of a story to me, really.
No,
we know that Apple are interested in making as much in-house as they possibly can and designing as much in-house as they can. It's just part of that.
Yeah, he's an ARM chip architect, and Apple have given him probably driven a large truck full of money and dumped it on the front of his lawn and said, "Come and work for us." We'd like you to work on, A chips for our for our iPhones and whatnot. I don't.
I think there is still a lot of speculation around ARM-based Macs and whether they'll really become a thing.
I waver on that. Sometimes I think yes, sometimes I think no. I can't really make my mind up about that. But I just think there's a big leap between we've hired this guy and we've hired this guy to make ARM Macs. I don't get that at all. I think that's
a leap of faith, really.
It's a leap of faith, isn't it? I think that's just that if you believe that an ARM Mac is on the cards, then yeah, you could read that into it, and if you don't, then you can read nothing into it. To be honest, there we are. And of course, I guess we can't avoid it. This is the Jony Ive Exit Strategy Edition. Jonathan Ive has announced that he is going to leave Apple and start his own design consultancy, which is going to be called, was it With Love or Love From? Sorry,
Love From. Yeah.
Love From. With his chum, Mark Newson. I wasn't really that surprised. I don't know about you two. What did you think?
I wasn't surprised, and hey, he's been kind of getting more and more hands off. I think they announced years ago he was going to be more hands off and kind of start, I guess, what's the word? Working his way out almost.
Yeah, well, this was the thing. Stratechery wrote a piece, and actually he sort of resurfaced a piece he wrote when Ive was promoted to chief design officer. And where he said, "I believe this is the beginning of the end of the Jony Ive era." So he's written a piece this time, which with a slightly gloating tone, I have to admit, saying, "I told you so," in effect. But yes, he was promoted to chief design officer with the idea that originally, apparently, that would take management stuff off his hands. and allow him to concentrate on, free thinking. But stories have been abounding, really, haven't they? That he concentrated on the campus building. That the last thing he was really deeply involved with was the watch. That he only goes to the Apple campus a couple of times a week and meets with people, in San Francisco at their homes or at hotels. I've noticed, he's been absent from the last few keynote. They used to pan the camera around and show him sitting in the audience,
Right.
smiling sort of in a paternal way when reveals were made. And then, of course, he'd do his loving, not just aluminium, but Apple aluminium.
I thought you were going to say Marks and Spencer's.
Yes, well, exactly. But very much in that Marks and Spencer's mould, wasn't it? This is not just aluminium. This is Apple aluminium. We've had none of those. No White Room videos. No shots of him, smiling in the audience.
Though I think there's been videos released with him after the keynote. They just don't show him in the keynote.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? That's just gradually removing him from the...
Right. Kind of getting people used to him
not being there. So I think it's been quite obvious for some time that he's been stepping back.
You see, it's quite possible, because I know someone who's left the company I work for who felt exactly this way, that what they've been asking him to do is not really the core of what he likes to do. And they've pushed him into a related job, but not the job that he really wants to be doing. And therefore, there comes a point where he thinks, well, hold on a minute. I don't need to work here. I can work somewhere. I can set up my own business.
Well, I could do anything I like. Several people have put forward the theory that for the last few years, he's been concentrating very much on the campus, where he's been able to work on designing anything he likes, from doors to sinks, anything and everything, light switches, whatever takes his fancy. And that actually, maybe he's had enough of just doing computers.
Maybe.
He's refined the iMac and the laptops. Maybe that just doesn't excite him anymore. And I must admit, after, say 15 years of refining the same thing, maybe he just really, no.
Yes. You can see that, can't you?
Can I design a kettle?
Here's a slab of aluminium, and we want you to make it this big and buy that big. There you go. You've got all that flexibility with this tiny bit of aluminium. Away you go.
But maybe just, I want to be a tree. Maybe just, can't I design a teapot or a kettle or anything?
And maybe the point of setting up this company is that they'll have more flexibility in.
Well, I think
they won't just work for Apple.
They won't.
They'll do other people as well.
They're going to be a design consultancy, aren't they? And don't forget, before he joined Apple, those were the places he worked.
Yeah.
I read the Leander Caney book, Jonathan Ive, the genius behind Apple's greatest product, which is a sort of biography. And, that is his background. After college, he worked in design consultancies where they would either pitch for projects or be asked to, design a set of concepts for a new product. And that's
Why does anyone working for Apple have to be a genius? It gets a little bit tiring after a while.
Yeah, I know.
And I don't believe any of them are geniuses. I believe they're all clever people in their own right, but genius? I get a little bit tired of people saying the word genius for
genius. Yes.
Everyone. Even when they say it about Steve as well. I just get a little bit bored of them saying, "Oh, he was a genius." Well, yeah, he was a clever guy.
He was clever,
but a genius is someone who does something that changes the world. And in all honesty, even though the iPhone probably did, he didn't do it on his own.
No, exactly. This is, this is something that even he seems to be trying to, having been stepping back. He's making a big thing out of the two guys who were taking over from him. That one of them was like his chief collaborator on the watch, and and also, they've lost several people from the design studio over the last few years. And I suspect that is simply the fact that that team's been together a long time, 20 odd years. And although it's probably not that old, but they're probably, Johnny's 52, I think. The guys around him are probably, in those sort of situations, those kind of teams, they're probably all much of a, similar age. Yeah. And like you say, after 20 odd years on it, maybe they're all like, oh, can I face another day staring at iterative designs on how we can shave another 0.5 millimeter off the, yeah. And they're getting in new talented people, and in some ways, I don't think it's a bad thing.
It was not a bad thing either.
No, I don't think it's a bad thing.
There was a BBC programme on that I caught over the last few days, and they had the guy on who designed the iPace, right. And apparently I'm not sure I think he's stepping down from Jaguar, and he's decided that what he'd really like to do is design handbags.
Yeah.
Because he wants to change from cars. He's been doing it for a long time.
I think that's a lot of it. If you are and because we know Johnny Ive and Mark Newson, they like cars. They've designed cars. They did that Leica camera special edition. He did that weird Christmas tree for somewhere or other. If you're creative, you probably don't want to be staring at
doing the same thing all the while.
I mean, once you've done the Apple Watch and maybe, having done it the first time, right, well, how can we make it better? You probably don't want to do a 10th watch or a 14th watch. It's just, I don't think it'd be a bad thing. I'm with Donny here. I've really enjoyed a lot of Jonathan Ive's work. Not all perfect, like you say. Genius. Well, sorry, but the Apple TV remote is not a genius piece of work. Sorry, it's not. Bloody horrible.
This year we're producing the iPhone, and it's our best iPhone yet. It has a generic look that is like all the other iPhones that we've designed.
I just think to some extent that they've iterated and iterated and iterated, and sometimes
they're iterated out.
Well, yeah, and sometimes to the point that you're not making it better. We all know one of my favourite gripes is why the bloody hell does the desktop need to be 3 millimeters thick on the edge? So you can't put the ports on the edge anymore, and now I have to dislocate my shoulder to plug a USB in round the back. That really grates on me. What's wrong with having it thick enough to have the USB ports down the side, where a normal person can actually get at them?
Good point.
Sorry, Johnny, you don't like the cables coming out the side of the Mac, spoiling your aesthetics. I don't think it would hurt, perhaps, to have some people come in and, not tear it apart. I'm not saying we need to go back to chunky boxes, but perhaps somebody with a little more pragmatic approach.
Maybe so.
Although,
as it says in the articles, they'll still be doing work for Apple. So.
Oh, yeah. But I think that there's a big difference between somebody being a consultant and somebody being your chief design officer.
Yes, true.
They can go to him and they can put forward something and they can go, Johnny, that's bloody terrible. No. No. Just no.
Johnny, what do you think of this?
Sorry, Donny.
Or they get his opinion and then he sends them a bill for thousands of dollars by saying I like it or I don't like it.
Yeah, exactly. I do think that perhaps both Johnny Ive and the whole kind of Apple design thing at the minute has become a bit stale. I'm not saying we have to have total radical redesign and do everything over, because there is a good reason that the iMac is the way the iMac is. And that's because I would say, it's 95% or 97% or whatever. Great. I just think that possibly for me, the pinnacle of the iMac was just before they decided they had to make the edges of it as thin as a laptop. when you could still have a door in the back to change your SSD or whatever.
Well, I've always thought that this idea that the design is so slim that you can't accommodate a removable hard drive was nonsense, really.
Yeah. To some extent,
they could have done had they wanted to.
But to some extent, on a laptop, I can see it, right? Especially there are always people who were saying their laptop has to be shaved down to nothing because apparently they can tell the difference between a £1 laptop and a 1.1 pound laptop.
Well,
in their carry.
Maybe so, but I mean, what's wrong with having a slot on the side where your hard drive goes in?
Exactly.
It can still be almost as thin as a hard drive.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I've often thought that I'm sure there are ways that they could have done it had they wanted to.
Yes. I'm saying perhaps with a new design team, perhaps a little bit more pragmatism might come back, because I think we're all aware that Jony has a distinct obsession with paring everything down to nothing.
Yeah.
To the point.
Maybe so.
To the point. The other thing I think was telling is, him and Steve were thick as thieves. He said as much.
Oh, yes, yeah.
He said as much after Steve died, didn't he? And he would say, Steve had some, would have these stupid ideas, and some of them were really, really stupid, incredibly stupid. And then he'd say something that would take the air clean out of the room. And it's obvious that those two were, they were incredibly great friends. They worked together incredibly closely. And as John Gruber had said, to be honest, Steve Jobs and Johnny Ive were a bit like, Lennon and McCartney. That the sum of the two was greater than the sum of the parts. They worked incredibly well together. And I think maybe, without Steve, that's got to be hard, hasn't it?
Yes. Oh, yes, without a doubt. So, in some ways, the end of an era, but perhaps the start of another one.
Yeah, I don't think there no doubt there will be people in the media or whatever, the tech blogs going, in the same way. Oh, Steve is gone, Apple is doomed, weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth. But I
read that the stock market, because you know how jittery the stock market is about anything. Apparently, 9 billion was wiped off Apple shares when it was announced.
But it was actually less than 1%.
Yes, it sounds a lot though.
Well, it is a lot, isn't it? But I guess when they said actually it fell less than 1%, I guess that's indicating that perhaps it wasn't. I mean, it's a lot of it. The same as people are saying this thing about announcing that he will be starting his own design agency with Mark Newson, and Apple will be their first and primary client. It's almost a kind of nothing much will change.
Yes, it does sound a bit like that.
Stay calm, investors. He's not so much leaving as going slightly sideways.
Yes, he's stuck on the roof. Oh no, that's a different joke. Sorry.
Oh dear. Yeah. Donny, have you got any thoughts on it?
Just what we said. I think it's not a bad thing. Change can be good sometimes, and a lot, like you said, a lot of the designs have gotten old, and I don't know if repetitive is the right word, but I guess repetitive. And someone new could bring, who knows how many years in. Ives designs are like kind of already in the works.
In the works, as it were.
Then, who knows when we'll actually see the next person's design that they've done on their own without Ives really being the main person. But who knows? We might know it might be a drastic difference, but that could still be 1 or 2 years off.
Yeah, it could. But then again, he has been stepping back.
But I think he still had like final say, I would guess, maybe.
I think he probably had kind of oversight, but then the two guys that have taken over from him, they appear to have had, a lot of the taken over to a large extent what Jony was doing.
I wonder if it's like now they don't have him over their shoulder, so they might feel like they have more freedom to do something.
I think so. The other thing that was The other thing that a lot of noise was made about was the fact that those two are not going to report directly to Tim Cook, but they are going to report to Jeff Williams, is it, this chief operations officer? There was a few people beating their chests, and in the tech sphere, saying, "Oh no, this is a sign that Apple are becoming, just a big corporation run by operations." But from what I've read about Jeff Williams, he is in fact more of a product guy than he is an operations guy. So that might
could be the same thing. Apple is changing now that Ives isn't there. They've been doing it one way just because he's been there.
Yeah.
Now that he's gone, they can make changes.
I think so, to some extent. I like a lot of things that happen in Apple, particularly when they have a high level shuffle. That what's happening is simply Apple announcing the way things have probably been for a while.
Right.
I don't think Apple go, right, Eddie. Eddie, I know you're in charge of this at the minute, but we thought we'd have a change. Can you go over there and be in charge of that department? They don't do that sort of reshuffling there. That's not how it works. I think particularly the management team slide. If they start to take over control of an area or whatever, that and these things happen naturally. Something will drift into their sphere of control or out of their sphere of control. And when that's been that way for 18 months or 2 years or something, then the board say, well, shall we make this official that, Jony is now chief design officer and, these two are vice presidents of design.
Of course, it's very risky for a company to make major changes to something that sells incredibly well.
Yes.
And we may not see major changes in these devices simply because Apple are a little bit frightened to make any major changes because their customers might not like it.
Yeah, there is always that, but everything's a gamble, isn't it?
Without a doubt. But you've got to admit that when we've looked at iPhones during the last 10 years, their design has changed a small amount over that time. I love my iPhone 7. It's a really nice piece of kit. But it looks very much like the iPhone 6, and it very much looks like the iPhone 8.
Yeah.
Because,
that's what people
as I say, when you've got a device that is so iconic, it's really difficult to change it without affecting your sales.
Yeah. I mean, the iPhone 6, which obviously we had the iPhone 4, which was the one which always reminded me slightly of a camera body with the, with the strip round the outside and two glass panels. And then we had the 5, which was the one with lovingly chamfered edges. Which I remember even Craig Federighi making a joke about going camping and saying, "Look at the chamfers on these forks." On the camping forks.
Yes.
But the 6 and the 7 and the 8, obviously, which followed the same design, was very much a return to the original iPhone 1 concept, which was glass on the front, rounded edges,
Let's face it. There's only so much you can do with a block of aluminium.
Yeah, you can have chamfered edges, rounded edges, straight edges. I have to admit, yes, but overall, there's only so much you can do with something which is effectively a glass slab and some electronics behind it. And the phone, I think the phone less so, but the Macs themselves, I'm not saying people are crying out for change, but I think there are areas where somebody could, inject some new thought, maybe.
Maybe so, as long as Apple don't take it as an opportunity to build something that's ridiculously powerful that no one can afford. Oh, no, wait a minute, they've already done that.
Mate, I don't think it would happen, but I wouldn't. We've said it before, Nick. I would not mind seeing not necessarily a cut down machine, but certainly an entry level machine. Like the white plastic MacBooks, which we've mourned before on this show.
I mean, it's clear that even though as they claimed every year they've sold more and more Macs, and that they've still got a big market out there if they want to tap it.
Yeah.
And if they could produce something that is sort of just a little bit less expensive for those who want to. I mean, it used to be the Mac Mini, didn't it?
Yes.
But even that, the base of that now starts at about, was it 700-ish?
Yeah. It's...
which is, it's a lot of money. If they could produce something at 500 perhaps or less.
Yeah, I mean,
to encourage people to make that move like they used to. But there you go. It's obviously not in their wheelhouse at the moment.
Well, yes. Who knows? Who knows?
And they still sell plenty of stuff. Don't get me wrong, and they still make lots and lots of money. But
they make all the money. All the money.
Indeed.
All the money in the world. I just think there is still room in the world for a laptop that isn't, a wafer thin mint. You know what I mean? I don't know where you would position it or how you would do it, but I just think no matter how aesthetically pleasing it is to only have one port, perhaps that isn't necessarily the best way forward.
I think us geeks have a very different view of what's necessary and what isn't, in all honesty.
Yes.
I mean, the Mac Pro was a perfect example of where you're driven by imperatives that are for people who are not your average person. And I think sometimes we get a little bit lost in the desire to have something that is. I mean, even when they came out with the Mac Pro, I mean, what people really wanted was something modular. That was the big thing. We want something modular. They didn't necessarily want something that would blow the roof off the house because it's so powerful. What they really wanted was something that was modular. That when we wanted a new hard drive, we could stick it in. If we wanted some more RAM, we can stick it in.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure Apple are ever going to be that company.
No.
In all honesty. Not for the average guy in the street, anyway.
No.
And much as I love my iMac, I really do, it would be nice. I'd be quite happy for the iMac to get a bit thicker again and stick some more ports on the sides and all those sort of things, like you. But then I'm a geek, so perhaps I'm not the average person there. And they certainly don't aim their stuff on the whole at geeks, do they? They aim it at the general public.
No, it's aimed very much at the general public. And I don't know who will, who will take the lead. Where will it go? What will it result in? Only the future will tell us. How close will the partnership between Jonathan Ive and Mark Newson's new Love From. I mean, it could be, in effect, that, Love From becomes a bit like Frog Design, who were, back in the day, who designed all the sort of 2CX and 2CI and all those with their Snow White design language. They were an external design consultancy agency, call it what you will.
Right.
But at that period, they were doing all of Apple's design work. So
maybe
it could go that way. In that, what you've got is Jonathan and Mark, coming up with designs for Apple and merely having their own agency because that means they can also take on other work. Or it could be, a way of gradually phasing out Jonathan's input and letting someone else take over. Only time will tell us the answers to that.
I just had a thought. Maybe the iPhone XR is a sign of something that was more hands-off of Jony Ive's. Simply think about how many years we've only had rose gold, pink, and space gray products until the iPhone XR, unless you count the iPod Touch. And maybe us adding color was more of their thing than his thing. And the iPhone XR, I think, isn't that the best-selling iPhone, like the more popular iPhone right now?
It is the most popular iPhone by a large margin, I believe. And then the next best seller is, in fact, the XS, which is, of course, so the two biggest sellers apparently are the cheapest of the current generation, which is the XR.
Which is not very surprising when you think about it. I mean, if you look at the car market, the best-selling cars are the cheapest cars.
Yeah,
because
but
more people can afford them.
It's the color that's also making it sell more. I think people may be sick of just the plain colors. I mean, when the original iMac came on the market, it was you could get 5 colors of the rainbow, and that was what was different. That was what was new. That's what got people's attention, and it took off. And now look at the XR.
Yeah, that is true. That is very true. I ended up getting a grey black one in the end, but that was partly because the other colour I was interested in, I can't remember now, red or blue, was like, well, you can have that one in 3 weeks, or you can have a grey one tomorrow. So we'll have a grey one tomorrow then.
I mean, it's a subtle change. It's not making a folding phone, but
No.
It's still a change from what's been going on for the past 10 years or so.
Definitely.
Maybe so.
Definitely. I think it would be nice to see some, the return of colour. I mean, the iPod Mini came in a range of colours, didn't it? Anodized colours. So did the small Shuffle at one point.
Right.
Hey, in all honesty, I nearly always put my phone in a case anyway, so I don't really care what colour it is.
No, true.
I think it's the thought of having a color, though, where you can buy a case that has the clear back and you can still see the color.
Yeah,
true.
Yeah, I am quite a big, over the years, I have been quite keen on either the sort of thin ice cases or the sort of clear TPU type skins.
Mm-hmm.
So that I protect my phone, but don't completely, hide it. So
I bet you if the watch came in colors, it would be a huge hit.
That I really do believe. I think I'm with you there. Rather than you can buy a ceramic one for thousands. I mean, what is it at the minute? You can have silver, gold,
rose gold,
and rose
or
gold,
whatever they're calling it now.
Yeah, rose gold still. So you've got basically, charcoal, black, grey, silver, gold, or pink. Let's be honest. I'm sure if that came a range of colours, blue, green, red, orange, I'm sure that would be a huge hit.
Match it to your XR phone.
Yeah. Yeah, there we are. Right. Shall we move on?
Can we move to the Google's curriculum?
Yes.
Because while we've been recording, I've been looking at it and actually playing it.
Okay.
And this thing is not only what I think is fantastic for kids. My parents and aunts and uncles could use this. It's totally free. You don't have to give a login, an email address. You just click play and you can travel from island to island. And some of it doesn't seem like what I would call as important as the others, but the part on detecting scams and phony emails and stuff like that I just played through that whole thing in 5 minutes, and it was, I think any kid or anyone should do that. It's just easy and it's easy to understand, and I think they've got a really good thing here.
Yeah. And just to clarify, Google have launched a new curriculum, which is teaching kids how to detect disinformation. How to look for dodgy URLs and clickbait headlines and all the rest.
It's called the Be Internet Awesome curriculum.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and it's more than that. There's also who you should share there's an island about who you should share your photos with and who you should share your email addresses with and what you should do if you're being bullied online. And I think it was called Interland. I got off of it, but there's like 4 or 5 different islands you go to, and you have to complete the island with little mini games, and there's a quiz at the end. And I mean, it doesn't even have Google branding on it. It's very non-Google.
Okay.
It sounds very much like some of the training I've done at work. The packages that I've looked through that just teaching people about checking URLs and if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, and all that kind of stuff that I've been through at work with our cybersecurity stuff. And it's good that it's readily available for everybody, including youngsters. That's good.
It says here, developed in partnership with the Net Safety Collaborative, The new program includes play-to-learn activities which help educate kids about spotting disinformation such as fake URLs or misleading headlines. It also includes don't fall for fake activities centered around teaching critical thinking skills, so that you will know the difference between credible and non-credible news sources, for example. How to spot bad URLs. There are activities such as share with care, and it's cool to be kind about online harassment. And a nationwide partnership with the YMCA where it will help families talk to their children about topics like social media, cyberbullying, and disinformation. Right, there we go. Well,
do you think it's an indication of a change in people's attitudes? I think it's fair to say that people like myself and you probably, Simon, are sort of naturally suspicious of stuff that online, and that youngsters, because they've grown up with it, whereas you and I have sort of grown into it rather than up with it. We have that natural sort of suspicion of things when something pops up and you think, oh, hold on a minute, that just sort of doesn't feel right.
Yeah,
youngsters haven't got that sort of natural suspicion of stuff that happens online.
I think there's also. No, go on, Donny.
I was going to say, I have told kids, including my own, hundreds of times, just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's real.
Yeah,
and just because there's a YouTube video doesn't mean it's real. And I can go on YouTube or the internet and make a video or make something and say, this is the official trailer for the next Spider-Man movie, and post it. And just because it says official doesn't mean it's real.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyone can do it. And that's a really hard concept, I think, for kids to understand. And some adults.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, yes, true. Yeah.
True, very true. I think part of it, you're right there, Nick. Partly there's the fact that we haven't grown up with it. We've, we've grown along with it, as it were, because we're of an age that we were able to get onto the internet pretty much in the early days. But the other thing is, I suppose, if you remember the internet in the fairly early days when, it didn't look anywhere near as slick and produced and clever. And therefore, with all that slickness comes, you can produce a feeling of officialness, do you know what I mean?
Yes, yes, I think you're right. I think,
in the days when everybody...
Because we've seen, stuff sort of grow and actually get more, as you say, more professionally produced as it's gone through.
Back in the days when nearly all sites were effectively just a few frames with some text and maybe one or two pictures.
Yes, I remember those days.
But there's an old joke, of course, which is, on the internet, no one can tell you're a dog.
Yes.
Which was the cartoon of a dog typing away into some message board and saying to his mate next to him, on the internet, no one knows you're a dog. But there was a kind of subtle message behind that, which is don't believe everything you read.
Yeah.
And the slicker things get, the more they look like TV, if you like, the easier it is for people who didn't grow up with that to look at it as, if it looks official, then it's official. And you're right, Donny, that's something you have to, I have to bang on about all the time. And yeah, not only to kids, just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's true.
Yes, I still occasionally get people come to me and say, I was using my computer last week and a message popped up saying my antivirus was out of date. So I clicked on and I think, oh no.
God, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Here we go again. So that's very good. Props. Apparently, this Be Internet Awesome curriculum for educators launched a couple of years ago.
Oh, right.
So it's obviously not had maybe as much publicity as it should. No.
Yeah, I've never heard of it before.
No.
And as you know, I'm a teacher, so.
Yeah. So maybe it's not spreading the education message far and wide as it should. But props then, I'm quite quick to kick Google in the ghoulies when they do bad things. No, this is a good thing. So, if you're going to
Google.
If you're going to chuck bricks, you should also give out plaudits when required. So I think that's a big up. Raspberry Pi Model 4B or 4 Model B or whatever it was launched this week. Newer, faster, bigger, more powerful.
From $35.
Yeah, starting from $35.
Micro HDMI, USB-C power supply.
Can power 2 4K monitors, apparently.
That's pretty cool, considering it's such a small thing.
Yep.
I've often wondered whether I ought to get one of these just to have a play. Never have, but
I toyed with the idea. I've never got round to it. Partly because I have enough other things to tinker with, to be honest.
Yes, me too. Yeah.
I'm not sure I'd get far beyond just putting some version of Linux on it or Raspberry and using it as a miniature desktop, which kind of defeats the object really. But there we go. A new, more powerful, now available in 1, 2, or 4 gigabytes of RAM, I believe.
Yeah. Cool.
And they're doing a starter kit, I think, that comes with a case and some other bits and bobs.
I think I might have to have a play, one of these days.
Yep, there we are. Well, let's face it, starting at about £35 is not
neither here nor there.
Not exactly serious cash, is it? Microsoft has issued a warning for 800 million Windows 10 users. This was in Forbes. This is a bit, well, I don't really know how to describe this. Disgraceful almost. Windows 10, traditionally, or all versions of Windows, obviously run using the registry, which is something I don't really grasp precisely, but it is in some ways, I believe, similar to sort of the libraries in Linux and the Mac OS. And I know that it's, I know enough about Windows to know that if something happens to your registry, that's very, very bad. And apparently, traditionally, the registry is backed up so that there is a backup copy in case something goes horribly wrong. Apparently, what was at first reported as a bug, which is that the registry was not being backed up, despite a message coming up saying your registry was successfully backed up, has turned out to be a design decision, and that is that the registry is not being backed up. The message your registry has been backed up was simply left there, and it is indeed creating a file of 0 kilobytes. In other words, it is not backing up the registry. And when pressed, Microsoft have said that they did this in order to save on disk space, because the registry backup can be sort of 50 to 150 megabytes. Poor show, I think, is the only way to describe that. Partly because they didn't tell anybody that they were doing it. Not so much.
Seems a bit of a weird decision, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, I said in the Slack room, realistically, there are people like me who use Windows who have no idea how the registry works or what I would possibly do with a registry backup file should something go wrong. And if I wasn't able to restore my, Windows by the usual kind of rollback or please fix it for me kind of methods. Although my Windows is actually in a virtual machine, so I could just go back to a previous snapshot, but that's by the by. The main thing here seems to be a bit like when Apple have put their foot in it occasionally. It's that they've made a decision and told nobody. That's the thing. They haven't told anybody.
Well, yet again, I suppose the vast majority of Windows users won't even know what the registry is.
No, but there are people, obviously sysadmins and people who probably rely on that. That is a very important thing for them.
Yes.
And I said in the Slack room, I think that, that should have been announced and it should have been a switch. And the switch should be, I have no bloody idea what the registry is or how to do anything with a registry backup file anyway. Please save me disk space. And, alternatively, I am a sysadmin, and if you take away my registry backup, I will hunt you down and kill you.
What I can't understand is, it's not. These aren't big backups, are they? I mean,
no,
50 to 100 meg is neither here nor there.
Not unless it's building, not unless it keeps doing one after the other, I suppose. And
Oh, yeah.
But even then, surely you could have a limiter that, you only need 7 days worth or something. It's not.
The only time I've ever messed with the registry in Windows was we were doing some automation. This is going back quite a few years. Doing some automation with. We were producing reports which we needed distributing by email as PDFs. And the only way at the time of getting it to automatically send an email with a PDF attached was to write the path of the PDF to registry, to a registry slot in Adobe Acrobat, so that it wouldn't throw up the dialogue to say, where do you want to save this?
Oh, right, yeah. So,
and it was the only way to do it. So we just wrote some code that would actually write it directly into registry so that we could send the reports out. That's the only time I've ever really messed. But I know it was easy to break.
Yeah. I think the only time I've ever done anything in the registry was when XP went end of life, and there was a hack you could do to get your copy of XP to report itself as XP embedded, which is what they use in, ATMs and point of sale units and whatnot.
In which case you wouldn't keep being prompt upgraded.
Well, no, the main thing was that you would continue to get security updates.
Oh, right, okay.
When XP was told no more security updates for XP, that it got out that if you, apart from XP embedded, because obviously you couldn't have ATMs without them getting security updates.
Yes.
So somebody published this registry alt that you did, and to say that I made a change to the registry, I read the instructions and followed them letter by letter on how to make this change to a registry entry. And what it did was make your copy of XP report itself as embedded, so it would continue to get security updates. But there you go. That's the only time I think I've ever messed with the registry. And I don't think following somebody's step-by-step instructions counts.
This action is a little bit like sort of switching off time machine and saying, "Oh, we didn't think you needed to know."
Yeah,
we just switched it off.
We've just switched it off. Yeah. Oh, you know how we said it did backups every day, every hour, every day, every week, whatever.
Well, we didn't do that.
It doesn't do that. It was taking up too much disk space.
That's a year now.
So now we only do a snapshot, every other day. We didn't think we needed to tell you that. No. So poor show. I don't know what they're doing about it. I assume that they are probably going to turn it back on, or hopefully, perhaps make it a switch.
Apparently, there's a workaround, and it says, ironically, it involves editing the registry.
Yeah, I was going to say, I bet it involves editing the registry, doesn't it? Oh dear. There we are. So if you are, a Windows 10 user, be aware that your registry is probably not being backed up. There we are. Well, we've been going rather a long time. So I think we'll just skip on now to. Well, there was one thing we were going to talk about, and that is in this section. Worth a chirps. Luminar 3 photo editor for Mac and PC is available for the low price of $41.50, normally $70 apparently, if you use the promo code TOYS15 this is from 9 to 5 Toys. So there you go. If you haven't got a copy of Luminar 3 and you're interested, you could get effectively $30 off. Mac Jim sent us an app which is called Train Pal. Cheap train tickets by ctrip.com International. Available free on the App Store. Certified by all the rail authorities in the UK. So that will find you the best deal on how to get from A to B.
It's one of these ticket splitting jobs, isn't it?
It basically hunts for the best deal, including ticket splitting and all the rest.
Cool.
Yeah. If you travel much by train, that's probably worth checking out. Proton.
For those of you who aren't in the UK, that apparently it's sometimes cheaper to buy multiple short range tickets, even on the same line.
Yes.
than buying a ticket to go from A to B, as it were.
Yes.
Which is a bit bonkers, but there you go.
Bizarrely. Yeah.
Wait. Is that you can buy multiple tickets and stay on the train the whole time, or you have to get off like you're doing flights like
No,
sometimes it can be you stay on the same train.
The idea is instead of saying I want to go from Ipswich to London, which and the price is let's say £100, it would be buy a ticket to go Ipswich to Colchester, and then a ticket from Colchester to Chelmsford, and then Chelmsford to London, and find that the total is only £85.
And never leave your seat.
Yeah, never leave your seat. You just buy the tickets in advance
because that makes sense.
Yeah, you don't have to get off. You don't have to switch trains. No, it's about.
Yeah, we've got a bit of a bonkers train system, but there you go.
There we are. So yes, Proton VPN have got a good review on Wired, described as a brilliant VPN with no data cap. So there you go.
Good
plus for our friends at Proton.
Speaking of VPN, I just put this in the Slack. I've been using Windscribe VPN, and they just released an update to their app that lets you whitelist networks like your home network, or if you're on a network you trust. If you'd like to use a VPN just for public Wi-Fi, now their app lets you whitelist like your home VPN,
so that it doesn't
not turn it on.
Yeah, that's good. That's a nice feature.
Mm.
That's a nice feature. I mean, obviously, with Proton, I don't have to worry because it's uncapped, but that's a nice feature. They're very good. Very good. Mac Jim has sent in Synology have launched a DS4195. Oh, no, 19 Slim, sorry. Miniature NAS. There's a review here from DP Review. That's digital photography, I believe. And then we have got Nick, the Lightyear 1, an electric car which charges itself with sunlight, which is what we were talking about before the show.
Yes.
Fabulous. Good looking car. Fabulous concept. The roof and the bonnet, I believe, are covered with the equivalent of 5 square meters of photovoltaic panels. And this springs, doesn't it, from the the Solar Challenge or whatever?
That's right. Apparently, this company have won the Solar Challenge a number of years, so that's where they get basically solar powered vehicles of all sorts of different types, but usually very lightweight. And then they just basically run them for as far as they can get them.
Yes. And often they're
usually many hundreds of miles.
Yes, but that's on the same kind of vein as those challenges where it's like, how far can you get a car to go on 1 gallon of
Yeah, it's that kind of petrol. Idea, but for electric. Yeah.
But for electric, yes.
It does look quite an impressive. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's very expensive.
Yes.
But it's meant to be a luxury car.
They need to partner with Disney and get like a Buzz Lightyear edition.
Yeah. But it's still quite cool. I mean, they reckon that the solar panels could generate as much as 7 kilowatts. So effectively, it would be like plugging it into the mains, which, okay, is a very slow way of charging, but you could do it from the sun, which up until now hasn't been possible. So, I mean, the technology behind it is pretty clever.
Yeah.
And technically, if you parked it somewhere all day, you could end up with 50 or 60 miles of range by the time you've finished your day.
I mean, it's a really nice looking thing. It's got Italian designed. It reminds me of something like the Nissan Coupes or maybe sort of Alfa Romeo. It's a 5-seater coupe fastback.
Yes, now you mention it, it looks a little bit like the what were they called? The DS series, Citroen DS.
Yes, there's a kind
it looks a little bit like those.
There's a certain reminiscent of that. I read here somewhere.
But basically, it's very aerodynamic.
Super no drag.
And the whole of the top surface is right the way from the bonnet all the way over and down the back is all solar panels.
I assume those solar panels are like transparent somehow, so you can see out the back window, unless it's just all
looks that way. Yeah.
I assume. Well, that'd be like I'm sure it's you know, here in the UK we have a lot of cars with effectively very dark glass rear windows. I mean,
I think they did. I think so. I watched a video done by Fully Charged a YouTube channel, and I think they said they were doing something about that the rear view. So I'm not sure that you can actually see through them.
Oh, right. Okay.
But then they can put cameras in these days everywhere. So
yeah.
You could essentially put a screen on the back window that you see through your car, and it makes it look like you're looking out the back of the car.
We could
possibly, yeah. So it's
we have
an idea.
We haven't yet quite reached the Captain Scarlet thing though, where you sit backwards and drive the screen.
I remember that. Yes.
Yeah, in the SPV, the driver's actually sat facing backwards.
Facing backwards, yeah.
It does have CarPlay.
It does have CarPlay. All right, then.
Oh, I've got to get one then.
Yeah. And by the way, just while you everybody, as Nick said, it's quite expensive. It starts at €149,000.
Ouch.
Yes, that's the starting price.
So that's about what, $200,000 ish.
Yeah, I would have thought so. I did note actually somewhere in there, because there's a lot of panels in this on this website. They say in there that the solar panels are effectively embedded in some material, which means an adult could actually walk across them without damaging them.
Wow.
In case
it's about $170,000 for the record.
Okay.
Oh, right. Okay.
Oh, well,
not as expensive.
Bargain. Apparently, you can pre-order. There's a Pioneer Edition if you want to be one of the first 100 owners. Reservation payment is only €119,000. Delivery expected early 2021. You can be one of the first 1,000 owners, and you can pay only $19,000 up front, or you can join the line after the first 1,000, and then you need only put down €4,000. Or you could lease one apparently for €1,879 a month. Absolute bargain.
It's a cool website. I mean, if you're interested in websites, go and have a look at the website, because it's all HTML5, I guess. Yeah, it's all HTML5 cleverness.
It is. It's a very slick indeed. Well, that's a very interesting. It's nice. It's good. It's very, 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 very commendable. Just somewhat expensive.
Will it make it to market? I wonder.
Well, I mean, if they're taking pre-orders, I'm assuming that's pretty much a given.
Maybe.
Interesting. This did catch my attention. All for independently controlled advanced torque vectoring drive.
Yes, because apparently the motors are built into the wheels.
Yes.
So it doesn't have a separate motor.
No, one motor per wheel. Yes. This is a total aside, but for people who remember it, Steve Jackson Games, there was a game very popular, back in the day, called Car Wars, and in that he had kind of projected that vehicles in the period that this game was set would be electric, and they would be driven by one motor per wheel.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, there we are. That's a bit of pointless trivia. But there you go. It would appear that Mr. Steve Jackson of Steve Jackson Games was more prescient than maybe people thought at the time. And I think that's probably enough. John Nemo has, as it would happen, a special report about electric cars. And I think we'll play that after we're done. So I think we should just wrap up now, really. I think we've done quite enough. So, Donny, would you like to do the wrap up?
Sure, let's see.
You're allowed to say it's all in the show notes if you can't.
It's all in the show notes. No. RTTEACHR at Twitter. I do have a new drawing app, which I don't think we talked about because that was in the show that got not recorded. But I have a drawing app for the iPad. It has 30 videos of how to draw different things, and there'll be more added in the future. And it's currently on sale for $1.99 until I get the third and big section added with more videos. And then although
A bargain.
Regular stuff with the books and the stickers and all that will be in the show notes.
Yep, it's all in the show notes. Nick?
I don't have an app or anything like that. But you can find me occasionally on Twitter. Spligosh, Spligosh.
And, of course, you turn up occasionally on Bart's Let's Talk Apple.
I do indeed.
Right. I am, of course, on the Twitters as @Serenak, and that's SERENAK. The show is at Essential Apple. Bearing in mind that John Nemo has berated me, don't forget to go over to look at essentialapple.com for new articles which appear sporadically. I must say thank you to everybody in the Slack, of course. If listeners want to join the Slack, go to the show notes and follow the link. Mac Jim started up a family-friendly Flickr group for listeners to share. Go on over to flickr.com groups Essential Apple and request an invitation. Please be patient if you request one, because he has other things to do than wait for people to apply. And I think that's probably about everything for now. Thank you to everybody who supports the show, of course, by Patreon, by the tips jar, or otherwise. And I think that will be it. We'll say goodbye, and we'll let John Nemo give you an interview about electric vehicles. So until next week, goodbye.
Bye all.
See ya.
Nemo's Hardware Store has a special report this week. Hello, Donna.
Hello.
Hi, David.
Hello.
Are you the same David from the podcast on NBA basketball? What's that podcast called?
Basketball Insights. And yes, I am.
Good. Well, it's good to see you here in person, and I'm pleased with what you've done so far on your podcast, which is part of the MyMac Podcasting Network. Everybody look that up. Basketball Insights with NBA Dave. Tell me about your car, Donna.
I have an electric Kia Soul.
Kia, K-I-A?
That's correct.
How do you spell Soul?
S-O-U-L.
Are you pleased with that car?
I love that car, yes.
What's so great about it?
The fact that I don't ever have to buy gas or have any maintenance done to it every month.
And how much did it cost? Approximately.
Actually, David could probably answer that.
Okay. So do you have one also, David, a Kia Soul?
I have a Volkswagen e-Golf, electric Golf.
So this is not a mixed marriage. This is a very consistent marriage of two electric cars. Is that right?
That is correct.
So how did you pick the Golf and how did Donna pick the Soul?
That's more of a long answer, but the short answer is we wanted to kind of tiptoe into electric cars 2 years ago. And we figured that the technology would probably be where we want it to be, i.e. 300-mile range in the year 2020 or 2021. So in 2017, we needed just kind of a short-term solution. There was a federal program that offered about $7,000. There was a state of California program that offered $2,500. And there was a federal program that would pay 30% of your solar install. So we took advantage of all of these programs in the summer of 2017. And we're going to drive these two cars for about 3 years and then get our forever car, banking on the fact that the technology will be where we want it to be in a year or two.
Well, that's pretty soon. Are you ready to give up the Soul?
Yes, I am.
Do you know what car you want, Donna, when you get rid of the Soul?
Well, right now we're going to be a one-car family. Once I get rid of the Soul, and David wants to get a Tesla. Okay, so you're thinking big time and long term.
Yeah, well, I think the Tesla Model 3 is really, if you want a range of 300 miles, Tesla is your brand. And that Model S and X are very expensive. But in the time since we got into the Soul and the Golf, the 3 has now been released. It's been mass produced. People love it. It's been tested. It's safe, fast, effective. It can go 310 miles and it will be available in 2020. Then it was not available in 2017.
And are you okay with not having your own car?
Yeah, I'm fine because whenever I go somewhere, David's usually home and vice versa. So we can just work with each other's schedules like that.
And if you have to take an Uber or Lyft, it's not the end of the world.
That's right. There's always other options for transportation these days.
What's the cost of the Tesla 3 and what kind of incentives and other kickbacks are there?
Sure. Well, the current administration has rolled back or declined or negated a lot of those programs that I alluded to earlier. So the offer is not as good. You have to pay more out of your pocket and less out of President Obama's pocket. He was very nice. But I think basically the answer to your question is the 3 starts at about $35K. And how fancy do you want it? Do you want autopilot? Do you want self-driving, self-parking?
Okay.
All of that can get it up to 45 or 50 probably.
So it's a mid-priced car. It's not a luxury car. It's not a budget car like the Soul.
That's correct.
Good. Have you test driven or test drove or whatever, test drive this Tesla to see if you actually like it?
I test drove a Model S a couple years ago, and it is like a spaceship from the future. It is spectacular. And I will note the MSRP of my current Golf is $36K and Donna's Soul EV is also in the $35-36K.
Oh.
So the Model 3, to your point, is kind of a step below the high luxury. It's more targeted at a more affordable market and price point.
So it's not that much different from a Camry that's fully loaded.
Exactly. You know, I think it's really trying to take on the BMW Model 3, the Mercedes C-Class, Toyota Camry, those type of cars. And by the way, the Tesla Model 3 is selling more than all of those combined in the state of California, for sure.
That's terrific. Okay, well, I think now that we've got this car, where are you going to go in it? How far are you going to go? Are you going to go 300 miles?
We're going to take more road trips with the dogs. Because what the Tesla does is it tells you where the next charging station is. The other electric vehicles don't do that.
Good. And are you concerned about getting to 260 miles and not being able to get to your place by bedtime?
Yes. What do we call that? Range anxiety.
Range anxiety. Absolutely.
And with our current vehicles, our range is 80, 90, 100 miles. So the range anxiety pops up a bit more. But now with a range of 300 miles and the supercharging network and also the availability of places where you can stop and charge your car has also multiplied greatly over the last 2 years. So our range anxiety has decreased and we want to do Joshua Tree and Lake Tahoe and Yosemite and Bryce Canyon and Zion in Utah. So those are our targets once we get the electric car with the greater range.
And where do you live?
We live in Claremont.
Okay, that's near what big city?
San Diego, California.
Okay, so you're way down in the far southwest corner of the United States.
Right, but, Utah and Northern California can be a 5, 6, 7 hour drive. So it's not like driving across the country or anything bad like that. And
what are you going to do with your Kia Soul, Donna?
Well, we're just going to return it back to the dealership.
Is it on a lease?
Yes, it's a lease.
So will you get any money back from that?
Probably not, but it'll be a good test for us. And actually, I think the technology has advanced to the point where at some point we will look back and laugh and say, I can't believe we're driving a car that could only go 85 miles on one charge. It'll be like looking back and say how we used to watch VHS or read newspapers, all of these things that are just obsolete now.
Good. Any parting words for our listeners, Donna, on your Kia Soul transition to the one car family with the new Tesla that you don't have yet?
Well, we'll see you on the road on our new Tesla.
What color do you want to get?
We want blue.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Make sure she gets to pick the color.
That's right. Happy wife, happy life.
Good. Thank you very much, Donna.
Thank you, John.
And thanks, David.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Everybody, thanks for listening to Nemo's Hardware Store with a special report from San Diego, California for the electric automobile pioneers, Donna and David.
You've been listening to the Essential Apple podcast, and I'd like to say if you enjoy the show and would like to support us, feel free to go over to the website essentialapple.com and you will find links to both Patreon and the Pinecast Tips Jar, where you can make a donation towards the costs of the show, or even if you're really keen, you could set up a recurring payment. And thank you very, very much to all the people who already do support us. We really do appreciate you very much indeed. This show is, of course, part of the My Mac Podcasting Network, where you can find a variety of other shows like the My Mac Podcast with Guy and Gaz, the G-Men, Tech Fan with Tim and David, the Nintendo Club podcast, the geekiest show ever, the Three Geeky Ladies, Bart Bouchot's and his wonderful Let's Talk Apple, and possibly some more that I've forgotten. So why not go over to mymac.com, take a look at the available podcasts, and take a listen.
Hi, I'm Bart Bouchotz, host of the Let's Talk Apple podcast. Every month I gather together a panel of Apple followers and we digest the month's Apple news. Our aim is to step back and take a 40,000-foot view of all things Apple. We're the perfect complement to the many great daily news shows out there. Listen and subscribe at www.lets-talk.ie.
This has been the Essential Apple Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show and we look forward to you joining us again another time. Until then, goodbye.